Welcome back to the Jet Press podcast, where finally it's not all doom and gloom. We can actually talk about a Jets win. I know some of you may not be thrilled with the Jets win, especially those of you who are all in on the tank, all in on finding the new quarterback. My thought is, at a certain point, you want at least some positivity going into next year. You want to see guys win. You don't want to see Garrett Wilson coming out depressed after games talking about how we have a loser gene. You don't want to see guys that are going to be here next year start to regress. You don't want to build up all this losing scar tissue for years and years and years that may not even take a new regime to fix. That's how much trauma the Jets have been through. It's nice to get a win, especially against the Jaguars team that is just as wounded as the Jets. Obviously, no Trevor Lawrence. If Trevor Lawrence plays, they probably end up winning this game. The Jaguars do. But Mac Jones gets in. And at a certain point, this is why I was upset the last couple of weeks, because when you're up by a certain amount or you're playing a certain tier of opponent, tank or no tank, sometimes you just got to win some of these games. And they did. This is a game the Jets should have won, and they won. And I'm happy with that. And you should be happy too, because you know what? A lot of guys that are going to be here next year, they really balled out. Especially Davante. Take a bow to Davante Adams. This might be a little hyperbolic, but in the last, 10 years, has there been a Jets skill position player who played a game that well? That was utter dominance from a Hall of Fame wide receiver, should be Hall of Fame wide receiver, and a Hall of Fame quarterback who had some struggles early on, but boy, oh boy, did he ever pick it up in the second half. So my name is Mike Luciano. Justin Freed will be joining us a bit later, about maybe 5-10-ish minutes. Got some things to take care of on the other end of things, but I'll get you guys started on the Jet Press podcast. So if you want to support the show, there's two ways you can do that. You could subscribe on YouTube, which is just free. All you got to do is hit the subscribe button and then hit that thumbs up icon, that like. That really does help. It just promotes us in the algorithm because YouTube sees that more people like this. They want to promote it. That's a good way to support the show. And if you want priority reply in the comments, you can get that too. All you got to do is pay our 99-cent membership, less than a cup of coffee. It's like a quarter of a cup of coffee. Get you that. And it helps support me and Justin make more good content for you guys. Let's just get into Jet Jaguar. For those Godzilla fans out there, it's Jet Jaguar game. And this was something where Mac Jones, for some reason, I don't know what it is about the way he plays, the way he looks, obviously being on the Patriots, something about him, it just, as a Jets fan, you just want to wring his neck for some reason. I don't know why it hits my irritation buttons, but it does. So this game starts off against a guy that I'm already not a big fan of. I don't think he's a particularly good player. And he's dinking and dunking and scrambling and getting sacks negated and doing these celebrations. I don't even know what the hell they're doing, but they look cocky for a guy who's Mac Jones. Whatever you think of the tank, at that moment, my switch is flipped. I said, there's no possible way you can let this guy get up off the mat. You got to find a way, especially because the Jaguars, they have like two things going for them right now. Trevor Lawrence and Brian Thomas. One of them did not play. Thomas did. This is a game where I need to see vintage Aaron Rodgers. I need to see a vintage Jets defense performance. I didn't get that. I needed to see some semblance of the team they were promised to be, because I can't let Mac Jones dance on my team. I don't care what the situation is. Some things are beyond the pale. Like we talked about losing the way they lost to the Colts with how far ahead they were against Anthony Richardson. That's beyond the pale. You can't go into a game, a fourth quarter, with the lead for the fourth consecutive week and lose all four of them. Opponent be damned. You can't do it. You can't do it. And they held on. Davante Adams, boy, oh boy, 9 catches, 198 yards, and 2 touchdowns. I did look it up. It is the 7th most by a Jets player in history. 3 of the guys above him are Don Maynard, who had 3 200-yard games. We got Bake Turner in 1963 with 210. Rich Castor, who was a tight end, had 204. And then Eric Decker. Do you remember that game against the Dolphins in Week 18 where Geno Smith had like 360 and 3 touchdowns and a perfect passer rating? That was that game. So really, since basically the merger, this is probably – and Rich Castor was a tight end. So since the merger, you can make a case. This is the best game a Jets wide receiver has ever had, statistically. This was a game. Garrett Wilson did not have his best game. Allen Lazard looked like the Allen Lazard from last year that nobody liked. Just a complete regression on his part, even with Aaron Rodgers back. It was Davante Adams. Short, deep, couple beautiful deep balls, couple beautiful throws down the sideline from Aaron Rodgers. And you see that, and you get excited, and you're allowed to be excited because this Jets team is not giving you reason to be excited very often. I don't necessarily think this should change the long-term outlook because they were a 3-win team and they beat another 3-win team barely after some bad clock management. I mean, Ulbrich, what are you doing? You could have wound the clock down and kicked a chip shot field goal and won 28-25, not even put us through all that mess. Luckily, Sauce Gardner with his first interception in a very long time. I think that's a nice way to put a bow on this game. You needed to see something. That's it. And I don't think that they're going to keep this together next year. I don't know if Rodgers is going to be back. I still don't think so. I don't know what that means for Davante Adams. I don't know what that means for Garrett Wilson. I don't know what that means for a lot of other people on this team. But at the end of the day, like, you don't want to end up becoming what I call just a perpetual loser. You don't want to end up becoming a perpetual loser fan base. Because I do think, and not necessarily anybody in particular, I think there are certain people that almost like get a kick out of the Jets being this like sad sack, woe is me, oh, we're the Jets, oh, well, same old Jets. And because of that, they're almost sort of reveling in this year and how bad they are. And, oh, the Jets can never get anything right. Like, at a certain point, if you're that overly negative, like if everybody's that overly negative, I think it just seeps through. I think there needs to be some people who are like, you know what? Record be damned. They're going to be bad anyway. They still have a top 10 pick. I think they're number 8 right now. And obviously New England still has to play. The Raiders still have to play. But right now they're number 8. They're going to get a high pick. If your GM really can't pick number 8 and he needs to pick number 5, if that's that debilitating, you got a bad GM, you're allowed to be happy. Because the other option is to look at the Jets finally put together a win on the road against Jacksonville, granted, but a road victory in which Aaron Rodgers played well. Davante Adams went supernova. Individual defensive players I thought had pretty good games. Olufashinu was astounding in terms of how good he was. His development has been very encouraging. It was probably one of their best games in the trenches, I would argue, on both sides. You're supposed to look at that, which is progress. Isn't that what you want to see? Progress? Guys get better, especially guys that are going to be here next year. You're going to have to look at that and go, but they lost. It couldn't be me. Couldn't be me. Because that would just be, that's devaluing what the Jets are actually doing here. Like I see a comment right here, AJ. I hear you, but man, we needed a win. That's what I'm saying. You need something. It can't just be all negativity. You can't just go 3-14 and then suddenly you bring in a GM or a quarterback or whatever and instantly everything's fine. That happens. It happens so rarely that banking on it is not a strategy that I would necessarily lean on. And again, with AJ, let's not kid ourselves. The Jaguars could have won that game but for a few key moments. Absolutely. Horrible clock management. Mac Jones in his last couple starts didn't score more than 10 points. He got 25 today. So they should not have let that game get that close. I'm with you that if you're probably playing all but maybe 4 or 5 teams in the league, I think that performance was not necessarily good enough to get the win. But hey, the Jets won. And they've won one game since week 3 when Aaron Rodgers said their biggest obstacle this year is going to be how do we handle success. They won one game in that time. It was that Thursday nighter against Houston, which half of that was a fluky anyway because they were terrible in the first half. That was when Malachi Corley just dropped the ball at the goal line. That was the only win the Jets have had in months. If you can't celebrate this to some degree, I think that's a problem. As we welcome in Justin Freed. Justin, Jets did win. There's some positivity.
There is.
They're 4-10. They have the number 8 pick in the draft right now off of, I did just say before you got on, the 7th best wide receiver game the Jets have ever had in terms of yardage from Davante Adams. The second highest since the merger. The only one more was the Eric Decker game in week 17 when Geno against the Dolphins went crazy. So you could argue in terms of just pure dominance, that was one of the best games a Jets skill position player has ever had. And it led the Jets to a win against the Jaguars team where I know they're bad. I know they're both tanking, but I can't see Mac Jones doing these goofy celebrations and throwing for almost 300 yards. I can't see that and have the Jaguars win. Like some games you just have to win no matter what the situation is.
Look, I said during the game that I'm pro tank, but I'm not pro Mac Jones punking the Jets and doing whatever the fucking Rizzler celebration, whatever he did. No, screw that.
I hear those names like Rizzler and not to sound like an old out of touch old fart, but like I don't know who those people are. And every time I see,
are you serious?
I have no idea what they are. I don't know what they do. I don't know anything like that. So when I see that, I just felt like I was 90 years old. I'm like, what is Mac doing?
Well, let me tell you something, Mike. The Jets brought the boom today, baby. They brought the boom. They brought 5 big booms. No, man, I don't even care.
Oh, that's embarrassing.
I'm shocked you don't know who they are. No, listen, we can – I don't know what you've already discussed so far. I'm just hopping on now. I feel like I've made my point clear on Twitter where I stand on this. I will repeat it here, and I don't think it's going over well. I think some fans are not liking this because I know how Jets fans get after wins. If anybody has a different opinion, they're going to lose their minds. Same way they get after losses, too. I was not rooting for the Jets to win this game. Let me preface this by saying that I am extremely happy for fans that root for the Jets because the Jets organization has done a lot of damage to their fan base forever, but especially over the last few years and really this year. I feel so bad for this fan base that I'm happy. I'm happy that Jets fans who are rooting for this team to win and are continuously rooting for this Jets team to win, they can be happy because they finally saw a win for the first time since October. This is only the second game the Jets have won in their last, 11 games, whatever it is.
They were 2-1, so yeah.
They were 2-1. So I'm happy for Jets fans. And even more so, I'm happy for the players, guys like Garrett Wilson, who are going out there every single week. And it really takes its toll on them. And you see it. And I feel so bad for guys like that, for Jamie and Sherwood, for Quinton Williams, for whoever's out there playing their ass off and is having a good season, like a Will McDonald, right? He deserves more wins than 4 wins given the season he's had. Same goes for guys like Garrett Wilson and whoever. So I'm really happy for those guys. But from my perspective, I find it difficult to get excited about a win that was led by 2 guys who, and we'll talk about this, 2 guys who I do not think will be on the roster in 2025. And the reason the Jets won this game was Aaron Rodgers and Davante Adams both went off. And the offensive line, which we'll talk to. I think that is my biggest positive takeaway is the offensive line absolutely balled out, and that is great to see. But it's hard for me to get excited about a win like that, where, yeah, sure, Davante Adams had an amazing game. 9 catches, 198 yards, 2 touchdowns. Like you said, one of the best games by a Jets wide receiver ever. He's also got 3 more games left with the organization. So why do I care? And that's what it comes down to. Now, is it the end of the world? No. Am I going to lose sleep over it? No. Honestly, I'm so checked out of this football team that I don't really care too much either way. But ultimately, it would be better for the organization to lose the game. Right now, they've fallen to the 8th pick. They could fall as far as the 9th pick after today. If they lost this game, they would have had the 4th pick. That is a big difference. Now, anything can happen from now until the end of the year. But that is a significant difference, especially if you have a chance to land one of the top quarterbacks, or even if you don't. There's a big difference between being in a position to draft a Travis Hunter or draft maybe Mason Graham, as opposed to now having the 9th, 10th pick, whatever the Jets might end up with. Again, not the end of the world, but that is, from my perspective, why I'm rooting for the Jets to lose from now on. I mean, I would love to see competitive losses where you got guys like Luciano playing well and guys who are going to be here in the future. If the Jets won this game because Breece Hall, Braylon Allen, Isaiah Davis went off and they rushed for a bunch of yards and Quantez Stiggers had 2 pick sixes, I'd be a lot more happy. I'd still be like, damn, they lost, or damn, they won, but that's the way to do it. Doesn't get me excited to see Aaron Rodgers and Davante Adams win this game, because now, I don't know if you've seen the prevailing belief now. I mean, I tweeted out something like, hey, I for one don't think that Aaron Rodgers and Davante Adams should be back in 2025 just because the Jets beat a 3-win Jaguars team in December. Doesn't seem to be a popular opinion at the moment, because now, after we just saw Aaron Rodgers operate from a clean pocket for the entire game and play very, very, very well, now it seems like every Jets fan wants to just run it back with Rodgers and Davante Adams, which feels to me like recency bias, and we've forgotten everything that's happened over the previous 14 weeks before this week. But yeah, that's where I'm at. That's where my head's at. I'm very happy for the fans. I don't want them to come across patronizing, and I hope it doesn't, because I genuinely am so happy to see Jets fans be happy, because God damn it, we deserve to be happy given the shit that this organization puts us through. So I'm happy for the fans. I'm happy for the players. I don't personally care.
Before we got dude, I'm 50, join the cultural ignorance club, says AJ, referring to the
but AJ, that's the name of the guy. Big Boom AJ. That's the Costco guy. His name is AJ.
Well, all right. What do they do? 10-second explanation. What do they do?
They bring the boom.
Okay, so I don't need to know anything about him. That's good. Okay.
They bring the boom, Mike. They bring the boom.
Discussing Rodgers and Adams, I do feel like, and I have always felt that it's more likely Adams is here next year than Rodgers. I feel like that's more likely. And I also do feel like this is just me. This is not based on anything empirical. This is just me reading the tea leaves. I always felt like the Jets bringing Rodgers back had more weight in the front office and in Woody circles than maybe it did on Jets Twitter. And I think a game like this, where Rodgers, I think finally now, we could talk about how he moved around. I think he is finally healthy. If he was playing through something, I don't think he's playing through anything anymore. And you saw a guy, I mean, the throws to Adams, I mean, the one down the sideline, the one over the middle, like, not only was he not making those throws early in the year, he wasn't even attempting those throws.
Nope.
So while I still would rather just like a clean reboot guy picture quarterback, I will say that the fact that now I've probably seen multiple games of him healthy, and I think it's looked a lot better than like weeks 5, 6, 7, where he 4, 5, 6, where he was clearly not healthy and clearly playing through something. I still wouldn't prefer it, but I think I'd be less upset with we don't have a quarterback in this draft we like. The only real veteran free agent out there that could make an impact right now is Darnold, and he's certainly not coming to the Jets knowing his career. Let's just give it one more go, because we don't find a guy. You don't want to draft a quarterback you don't like just to take a quarterback. You don't want to do that. Let's just see what happens, because we can't find a better option. And while that wouldn't be ideal, games like this where Rodgers, I mean, there were throws last. If you took just throws from this game and did a jersey swap and put Green Bay helmet on, you wouldn't have known the difference. When he's doing that little 3/4 shortstop throw down to the sideline, you're like, okay, now he's back. I think I'd be less upset if they brought Rodgers back after, I think now a couple games when you see that the physical stuff, like the arm talent, the ability to get the ball where it needs to go, that hasn't waned as much as I necessarily thought it has.
While true, and look, I'm not saying that I would be throwing a fit if the Jets ran it back with Aaron Rodgers, because like you said, Mike, there honestly might not be a better alternative. It ultimately might come down to that. I don't think the Jets are competing for a Super Bowl next year with Aaron Rodgers as their quarterback. I don't think most Jets fans, at least I'd hope most Jets fans wouldn't believe that would be a possibility. My hesitancy more so doesn't even necessarily come with the fact that I thought he was washed, because we knew he was playing through stuff, and maybe we didn't know the extent of it, but we knew it was impacting him. And it's nice to see him playing well now that he's a little bit healthier and he's had some time to rest. The issue is, do I trust a 42-year-old Aaron Rodgers to be healthy in 2025 when he's now had 3 years in a row of not being healthy? No. So yeah, if you can guarantee me that Rodgers looks like this, or even is as healthy as he is right now for next year, yeah, I think he could be a top 15 quarterback. If he's this healthy, possibly. I have zero faith in that happening. Like, absolutely zero faith in that being the case. And so I still think it's 100% the right decision to move on from Rodgers. Let the next regime make their decisions. Like, if the next regime comes in and they're like, hey, we want to stick with Rodgers, sure, whatever. We will trust the new regime as we do until they're proven that we shouldn't trust them, right? Whatever new regime comes in, we're gonna believe it, and we're gonna buy into it and say, all right, these are their decisions. That's what they're going with. Let's see if it works. But if it's a Woody Johnson decision and Woody Johnson's watching these final 4 games and saying, oh, you know what? Aaron Rodgers still got it. Let's run it back with A-Rod next year. Let's bring back Adams as well. I'm not for that. And as far as, one of them.
The keep Rodgers argument does stem from, I know this is box score scouting to a degree, but since week 8, which is the New England game, 13 touchdowns, 1 interception.
Yeah, and then it's easy to point to he's having one of the statistical best seasons by a Jets quarterback in franchise history. That's true. Also, the franchise history stinks. They've had terrible quarterbacks. They have very few seasons. If you were to compare like what a league average quarterback season is, that would be one of the best seasons by a Jets quarterback in NFL history. And that's not an exaggeration. Right now, Rodgers is still, in totality, you combine everything he's done this year, having an at absolute best average season. I would still lean below average given what we've seen. Now, again, there's context to that. He's been playing hurt. We understand that impacted him a lot. He was playing through an MCL sprain. He was playing through a high ankle sprain, and he was playing through another injury that is slipping my mind at the moment. He's been playing through injuries. We get that. It's fine. I'm still not in favor of bringing him back. I don't think that would be the best decision. Obviously,
AJ does say of your stance though regarding the
and I want to
respect it, but he can't quite get there.
I look. The one thing I always say, and I've said this so many times on this show, I've said it on social media, I've said it all the time. Don't police fandom. And that is one of my biggest gripes. When I explain to fans, why I explain to people, hey, here's why I'm rooting for the Jets to lose. It's not because I hate the Jets, although part of me does sometimes. It's not because I hate the Jets.
I hate that I like them.
Right. I hate that I like them. I hate that I care about this football team. That's what I hate. But we all want the same thing. We should at least want the Jets to be good. We all want the Jets to be a good, well-run, successful, winning organization.
That's the guy I was hitting out at, though, Justin. Since Michael K show was ending, I'm regarded of Don LaGreca and the Omar loves to lose rant. I think there are a lot of people
there are
that genuinely wallow in the like, oh, why can't the Jets ever get it right? It's like they make almost like a point of pride, like, oh, these lousy Jets, and then they take some sort of like, I love that the Jets are this bad because I get to complain about my team all the time. I think that's a significant amount of people out there. Those people would have been empowered by losing that Jaguars game. And I don't want them to feel any happiness. So that's where I'm at.
Here's the thing, and I feel like I get grouped in with those people for some reason, just because everyone who's rooting for them to lose somehow gets grouped into that. Obviously, that's not me. If you watch the show, if you follow me on Twitter, you know that I don't take pride in the Jets being bad. I hate it. I fucking hate it. I hate that I go out in public with a Jets jersey and people look at me like I'm a fucking dying puppy, and they're like, "Oh, poor guy." Like, I don't like that.
People just asking casual conversation, "What's your team?" Oh, the Jets, and they go, "Ooh." Like, I don't want that, you know.
I hate that so much. Like, it's a charity case. That sucks. I don't want that to be the case. Like, so no, I'm not like that. Honestly, Mike, I used to pity that, or I used to feel like I used to dislike those people, like the Joe and Clark. I don't know if you've seen that guy on Twitter. I think he's a WFN caller because, of course, he is. Guys like that who are just like everything the Jets do is the wrong decision, and that they're the worst ever, and that they hate them, and whatever. Right?
I will say though, if you just bank on that, if you just make your whole analyst opinion on whatever the Jets do won't work out, you'd probably be pretty successful.
Honestly, very true. But I used to dislike those people, and then I started to realize, Mike, am I victim blaming? I think those people are victims of decades of abuse from their favorite football team. Because you don't see anybody like that who's like 20 years old, right? Nobody's like that. By the time they're like anybody who's getting to that point, they're in their 40s, 50s, 60s. They have been through put through the ringer with this team. They have seen losing after losing after losing, after embarrassment, after dysfunction, after cycle of malpractice. I feel bad for them because I think they're abused. And so now I don't even feel like I don't hate them. I don't dislike them. I pity them. I feel really bad for them. But no, that's not me. I do want to adjust a couple things with the tanking conversation. Ariel has been pushing back on it, said a top pick doesn't guarantee anything. Of course not. I've never once claimed that. And I see people say it all the time. Oh, just because they get a better pick doesn't mean they're going to draft the right guy. And if we're talking historically, they're probably going to draft the wrong guy either way. But if I'm thinking just logically here, which maybe that's my problem. Maybe I shouldn't think logically with the Jets. But statistically, historically, logically, whatever you want to say, you are much more likely. You are more likely to draft a better player the higher you pick. That is a statistical fact. That is a true statement. The higher you are picking in the draft, the more likely you are to get a better player. That doesn't guarantee anything. It doesn't guarantee that the 4th overall pick is going to be better than the 9th overall pick, but you're more likely. There's been more great 4th overall picks than 10th overall picks in NFL history. And so that's part of it. And then Ariel went on to say as well, I get the mindset, but that's a losing mindset. I get that it makes sense from a front office perspective, but that's what a bad culture does when rooting for competitive losses. And I think
imagine the post-game quote you would have heard from Sauce or Garrett Wilson if they lost this game.
I know. There's two parts of this. I think there's some truth to it. I do think there's some truth to like, all right, look, I would like to see guys like Garrett Wilson and Sauce Gardner and Breece Hall and whoever's going to be here next year get some wins and feel that feeling of winning. I get that. And in the other part of my brain, the logical part is like, well, that's never been the case where a bad team wins games late in the season and it carries over into next year. That's always a fallacy that fans tell themselves, where it's like, oh, we can build some momentum. Like that, you know what fans like the archetype of fans that normally do that. It's you have a young team with a young quarterback. So you don't need the tank for a quarterback, right? Like say think rookie year Zach Wilson, rookie year Sam Darnold, whatever, and you string together a few games late in the year. Well, honestly, the Sam Darnold year where they won 7 games, right? That's like a perfect example where it's like, oh, okay, we're gaining some momentum, we're gonna be able to carry this over into next year. That never happens because the guys you're running it back with the next year, it's a different team. It's a different environment. And especially in this case, not only is it going to be a very different team, like they're going to have a lot of roster turnover. It's going to be a completely different regime, completely different coaching staff, front office. So yeah, I mean, sure, it'd be nice for a guy like Sauce Gardner, Garrett Wilson, whoever to get some wins, but logically, realistically, that notion, that concept doesn't really actually happen in real life. That's just kind of a fallacy that fans tell themselves.
I guess the thought though, of maybe if Rodgers would be back, then you wouldn't just want to go 3-14 and then try to sell fans on Rodgers.
I don't think they should try to sell fans on Rodgers at all. And in fact, I think them winning these games makes them more likely to try and sell that, which is not a good thing in my opinion.
I'm saying if Rodgers, if that's a possibility, you have to consider that it's going to happen.
Yeah, of course.
Wouldn't you be more willing to buy into that if they were 6-11 instead of 3-14?
Me personally, no. Not really. I mean, it doesn't matter the wins to me. It matters how Rodgers plays. Like, if Rodgers plays well and they lose, then yeah, I guess I'm more likely to buy into Rodgers. I'm either way not going to buy into Rodgers. A lot of it is health. Like I said, I don't think he's going to be healthy for 17 games next year. And if he's playing the games, I don't think he'll be healthy while playing them, as we saw this year. And that really, really impacts him because he's going to be another year older. He's going to be 40, turning 42 by the end of the year. I can't buy into that. I would rather start fresh, start new, than run it back with Aaron Rodgers, Davante Adams, and whoever else you want to throw out there.
Let's get to the comments. You can get priority replies for 99 cents. Just join the membership. Let's start with Jeff, who said just moving down the draft board.
Yep. They've fallen 8th. They would have been 4th if they won this game. They could be 9th by the end of today. Chicago,
yeah. Well, Chicago plays Monday night, so.
Oh, sorry, by the end of tomorrow then. Chicago, actually, Chicago's strength of schedule is a lot harder than the Jets. So
yeah, because that division's just a murder machine.
I think the Jets will be 8th going into next week.
Which, yeah, because even if the Patriots win, they'd have a worse strength of schedule than the Jets would.
Yep. So they moved down 1, but they had the potential to move up quite a bit.
Charlotte Builder, thank goodness their mistake not using time clock didn't cost them the game.
And that's the other thing, dude. I mean, how do I get excited about this game when the Jets are just so, like, even it's not like they played.
Well, by your own logic, Ulbricht's not going to be here next year.
No, he's not, and that's part of it. But it's like they didn't even play well. If the Jets blew out the Jaguars, and like again, the guys who are going to be back here next year did well, great. They tried their hardest to lose that game, dude. They really tried hard. And you've been harder on Jeff Ulbrich than I have. I've been like, he's been put in a really bad spot.
Well, I'm harder because he put himself in that spot by not delegating a DC.
No, and I get that. When I see him make a decision like that, dude, he's so bad. Like he's so bad.
Saleh would not have done that. And Saleh's one of his problems was clock management. I don't think he would have done that.
Probably not.
Brian Sternbeck, the Jets defense doubled their season interception total in one game today.
Thank you, Mac Jones, for throwing 2 interceptions where it looked like he was throwing to the Jets.
2 terrible ones.
Awful. He actually just can't throw deep. It's crazy. Like he's super accurate and like honestly,
people wonder why I'm not fawning over Bo Nix. I'm like, I've seen it before. It was 2021 Mac Jones.
Yeah. At least Nix
was a Pro Bowler as a rookie and made the playoffs.
At least Nix. Remember when Mac Jones was ranked? I think it was like 73rd on the NFL top 100 or something like that.
Bill Belichick should be in the Hall of Fame twice for getting that year out of Mac Jones.
At least Nix has the mobility. Although Jones was running a lot today, but he's not a running quarterback. That's not his thing. Nix is at least pretty mobile, but.
This is a comment from Lane Brandon going to what you're saying, though. We always talk about changing the losing culture. It starts with this, build off something for next year. Winning brings team morale.
I already talked about it. I don't think that's true. Like, I don't think that's a thing we tell ourselves, but there's no real historical cases of that actually being true. And I know it's hard. Look, I'm thinking of this from a logical standpoint. It's hard to quantify emotions. I get that. And I'm not trying to put that aside and say that these things don't matter, because it does matter for the players. And I'm happy for them. And I'm happy that they not only feel happy in this moment and they're able to get a win under their belt, but it does mean something where it's like, all right, they know how to win. Like knowing how to win and learning how to win is an important part of changing culture. I don't think this game is a good example of a team learning how to win.
I would say I'd rather they work out their problems in these games than, have it come back to bite them in the ass week 4 prime time against the Bills.
Yeah, but I also don't think them winning this game is them working out their problems. I don't think this changes anything. Next week, they very well might have a fourth quarter lead and blow it again. Like I don't think this fixes or changes anything.
Brian Sternbeck, Mac Jones to be the Jets quarterback next year would be icing on the cake. Don't you dare put that out in the universe.
Mac Jones actually might be my least favorite player in the NFL. Like least favorite in terms of like guys who haven't done like committed,
not counting personal,
right? Not guys who have committed crimes. Like just in terms of like I watch you play football and I hate you.
And he's hockey about it.
Dude, did you see the play where it was
Grayson Allen is better than him? And
yes.
I feel like that's what I'm watching. I think they went to the same school, in fact.
The same high school?
Mac Jones and Grayson Allen.
That would make so much sense. Did you see the play in the fourth quarter where Mac Jones like ran or whatever and he started celebrating and Sherwood like grazed Mac Jones, like just bumped him as they're walking past him.
That was a bad play by Sherwood. He went for the big hit instead of
it was. No. This was later. This was in the fourth quarter. Different.
Okay.
Different play. And he just barely after the play, Sherwood barely touches him. And Jones is like, whoa. And he's like pointing to the ref. He's like, yo, where's the flag? And I'm just like, dude, you are a bitch. Like, shut up.
Every time I hear Mac Jones dump off, I hear him physically go, when he throws the ball.
Yes. Whatever, man. Like, honestly, if there's one takeaway for me, I'm happy that Mac Jones is no longer undefeated against the Jets because that was so stupid. Like,
I'm also happy he's kind of a guy who's been a bigger supporter of like watch the film for like Trevor Lawrence than most.
Yeah.
That they put him in. It's like, okay, this is what it looks like without him. So
yep, it is a lot worse.
Jeff, Darnold signs with the Rams. Stafford signs with the Jets. Stafford is not a free agent, as Brian points out.
Yeah, they would have to cut Stafford and then pay Darnold a bunch of money. I don't see that happening.
If Stafford retires, I could see that as a landing spot.
What's Stafford's like contract? When is he?
I think he just got an extension. Like, did he? Kind of recently.
It was
other than last year, I think.
Yeah, he's on the books till 2026. So if they were to cut him,
Jesus.
If they were to, that's crazy. Yeah, no, if they were to cut him,
go into the Hall of Fame as a Ram instead of as a Lion. That's crazy.
They theoretically could move on from it. If they cut him if they designate him as a post June 1st, it's $26 million in dead cap. And
why would they do that? So
$23 million in savings. No, I agree. I'm just saying theoretically, finances actually make sense.
Christopher Cancel, shame on the Jets for a worthless win that means nothing. All caps.
I don't want to be grouped in with people like that because what are we saying? Shame on the Jets? Shame on the Jets for winning a football game?
Yeah, shame on them for trying to win. Yeah,
no,
I lose 60-0.
I feel like when I tweet what I've said, people read what I say as that. Like they read me as saying, like, I hate the Jets because they won this game. No, I'm not saying that. But people
Brian Sternbeck, Rodgers being back in 2025 would be less about roster or culture building and more about season ticket sales anyway.
And that's what I'm saying, where I think it's like if he's back and it's a Woody, like it probably is gonna be a Woody Johnson decision. And that sucks. And then so many fans will sell themselves and be like, look how we played when he was healthy. Oh, we can win 13 games next year. No. I just sounded like Jerry Seinfeld. That was crazy.
Well, I will say, you could lean on, all right, he's healthy now, he's playing better. Before he really was hurt, he was 2-1. Like, I mean, I wouldn't do it, but I think there's an argument to be had. It's not like this would be the worst decision ever.
No, I don't think
picking Christian Hackenberg in the top 50. It's not like that, like where there's no defense.
We don't have to be hyperbolic. I don't think it'd be the worst decision, but I don't think it'd be the best one either. I think there's absolutely much better alternatives.
Brian Hamill, worried more about who's making the pick than where we are making the pick. That is the right idea to have.
Yeah, but we can't make the decision now. Like, they're not hiring a GM at this moment. So ultimately, it doesn't matter. I'd rather whoever is making that pick have a better chance at landing a good prospect. So it doesn't matter. Like, that's irrelevant.
I do like that idea, though, of like, let's just cross that bridge when we come to it. Like, let's just not be Omar loves to lose guy. Like Chris Feliz, we should have lost. Meaningless wins are irrelevant. Oh, get out of here. Get out of here, Chris.
I mean, I get it. I understand it. And I understand that feeling.
You just said you didn't want to be associated with people like that 2 minutes ago.
There's a difference between saying shame on the Jets for winning a game and we should have won or we should have lost. I'm mad. Like, there's a difference between those two statements.
Mother effing Chew.
Nice.
Why would anyone want to watch their team tank? That's why I hope, even with Rodgers not here next year, Davante is.
See, okay, and I want to talk about this because you brought it up earlier. You said there's a better chance Adams is back than Rodgers.
I really do believe that, yeah.
I disagree. I think they're a package deal, unless Derek Carr is involved, right? Unless
that's what I'm saying. I think that's a legitimate option that they have to consider.
Okay, if you think I would put the odds of Derek Carr being the Jets quarterback right now at like 5%, which is a possibility. It's not a high one, but I think
if he does leave, I think they're immediately the top spot for him, though. That's why I'm thinking higher on him the most.
But maybe the Jets would go other directions. I don't know if Carr would be the immediate, top option for them. But yeah, I think if Rodgers
low-key had a really good year this year.
Yeah, he's been fine. And that's another guy where it's like, man, he's gotten some injuries recently too. But if Rodgers is gone and Carr is not the Jets quarterback in 2025, Davante Adams will not be on the roster. And everyone's like, oh, the Jets should just keep him. It is not that simple because as we've talked about in the past, I believe Ian Rappaport has talked about it, Davante Adams controls his future. If Davante Adams does not want to be on the Jets in 2025, he will not be on the Jets because the Jets did not touch his future years. So he is under contract next year. I believe he has a cap hit of $35 million, $36 million, something like that. And the Jets are not going to keep him at that cap hit. There's a 0% chance they do. So if the Jets bring him back next year, they will have to redo his deal, which he has to agree to. If he doesn't, he could say, well, either pay me $35 million or cut me. And the Jets will cut him. So I don't think there's necessarily a significantly higher chance that Adams is here unless the Derek Carr thing becomes a realistic possibility. It's probably going to be a package deal. If they run it back with Rodgers, Adams is here too. If not, Adams is gone. I don't think you're seeing a situation where the Jets go with Tyrod next year or draft a rookie and keep Davante around. Unless Davante Adams somehow wants to stay with the Jets, which I don't think he will if Rodgers is gone.
It would also be a tough sell of because the whole thing is you get a quarterback on a cheap deal as a rookie, you could build a great team around him. That'd be a tough sell if you have Davante Adams and you're like, no. Especially if there's Garrett Wilson trade rumors and you're like, no.
Oh, believe me, look, if it was up to me, if it wasn't like if finances were ignored, I'd be happy running it back with Davante Adams, Garrett Wilson next year. Davante Adams is still good. He's still a good player.
Still elite, I would say. I mean, 200 yards.
He's still
and he was the only guy doing anything.
Yeah, he's still a really, really good player. I think he's lost a step physically, but he's such a good route runner that I think he ages well, and I think he's going to be a very good, a very productive.
It's the ball skills, just knowing. I mean, 2 touchdowns where he's reaching over his shoulder. I mean,
yes, no, he's a very, very good player, and I have no issue with him being on the roster next year, other than the fact that I don't think he's going to want to be on the roster next year. And if he's on the roster next year, that probably means Aaron Rodgers is on the roster, and I don't think that's the direction the Jets should go quarterback. But as far as Davante Adams is concerned, yeah, in a perfect world, absolutely. If you're drafting a quarterback, Garrett Wilson, Davante Adams, that is the best possible wide receiver duo you can ask for a rookie quarterback.
There's absolutely nothing that can happen in the next 3 games for Aaron Rodgers to change your opinion on that.
Maybe he has a perfect passer rating in every single game and throws 6 touchdowns every game.
All
right, maybe. No, I can't say nothing, but unless he is playing like a top 3 quarterback in the NFL over the last 3 weeks, probably not. Look, we'll see because the Jets play some good defenses, right? Him doing this against the Jags defense with absolutely, dude, their pass rush is so bad. I knew their defense was bad. Holy shit, was their pass rush bad?
Which is surprising because I mean,
if Josh Hines-Allen, who's
Trayvon Walker's okay. Allen has been terrible this year.
I do think the Jets' offensive line deserves a lot of credit for shutting them down. Ola Fashanu, I know Hines-Allen hasn't had the best year, but Fashanu shut him down. Offensive line did a great job. I'm excited to see the pressure numbers after this. And it also helped that Rodgers was a little bit more mobile, and he was able to make guys miss and extend plays in a way that he was not doing earlier in the year. So, yeah, as far as Rodgers is concerned, if he plays like this and does really, really well against the Bills defense and against the Rams defense, which is not awful. It's not great, but it's not awful. Dolphins defense, not particularly great. But if he's doing this against especially the Bills defense,
but he looked okay against Miami. So
that will move me. If you want to, that's the game right there. If he balls out against the Bills defense, that will move me. And I still don't know if I'll say that it's the best decision to run it back with Rodgers, but I'll be a lot more open to it. But if he's just doing this against the Jags defense, which is the 32nd ranked defense in the NFL, in a game where he had all day to throw for the entire game, part of that was his doing. I don't want to make it seem like it was just the offensive line. Like Rodgers was extending plays, and he deserves credit for that because he was not able to do that earlier in the year when he was really dealing with those injuries. But yeah, I am not particularly moved yet. It's possible though.
And this is a nice moment from Leany in North Carolina. My hubby's son and I drove down from North Carolina. I was surprised how many Jets fans were there. Glad we got to see a win.
That's awesome. See,
that's a good story.
That's awesome. And I'm so happy for fans like that. I am like genuinely so happy, especially for the kids and stuff like that who are going to these games. And sometimes it's their first Jets game they're going to. And man, I'm happy for them. And I want to see them get wins for that reason.
Imagine if she drove all that way and Mac Jones beat him. And the kid's got to drive home from Florida to North Carolina.
That would have sucked. I mean, unfortunately, I can't care about every human ever. Like, I wish I could, but
I care about Jet Press subscribers. That's who I care
true.
about.
And I'm happy for you. I'm very happy for you. I am. I still will be rooting for them to lose. Sorry, but if they win,
my whole viewpoint of that change. I remember when you said like, "Oh, it could be their first game ever," and I remember thinking about that. I've mentioned this before. I went to Jets Bills 2014. That was like the Geno Smith 2 of 8 with 3 picks in the first quarter game. And then Michael Vick played. And we were sat next to this couple from Australia. And they were seeing like this, a Giants game, a Bulls game. Like they were doing basically their honeymoon was like a week and a half tour of America, seeing a bunch of American sports for the first time. And then, we're talking to the guy. He goes, "Oh, Jets always this bad?" I'm like, "Yep." Yeah. And then that's where I'm like, man, this guy never seen.
It's like crikey.
A Jets. He didn't get to see the one when they put up 60 on the Cardinals. That wasn't his first taste of the Jets. It was 3 interceptions, and then I believe that was the game. I think Sammy Watkins had 3 catches for like 160 yards, and 3 touchdowns, I think, or 2 touchdowns. And then Mike Francesa had the great quote where he goes, "You know how long it takes a Jets receiver to get 157 yards? 3 years." That was during the Jeremy Curley era.
And look at the Jets now, Mike. Look at the Jets now. By the way, this is the Jets' first win in Jacksonville since 2012. You know who led the Jets in receiving in that game? Talking about the brutal era of receiving.
Okay, let me try this. All right, 2012.
I'll tell you their stat line. This person had 1 catch for 37 yards.
I'm gonna say Jeff Cumberland.
Dude, let's go. You nailed
it. Are you serious?
Let's go.
That was a complete guess.
Let's go.
Whoa, I'm awesome.
It is Jeff Cumberland. 1 catch for 37 yards.
Hey, that hinge dates. Look what I can do. Boom. I can guess obscure Jets trivia off the dome.
It's like, you know the meme going around where it's like you get a text from your mom and it's like, "Hey, you bringing anyone to Christmas?" and you're watching like fucking Chaz Schillen's highlights. And it's
you
like,
did that. That was
I did. That's me, but that's me. I didn't make that.
Blake Salas.
I didn't make that meme. I copied that meme from others. Like that wasn't me who did that. But that's
Wait, did you have your mom text you on purpose to like make the meme?
A little behind the scenes.
Oh no!
I took my mom's phone. She knew it. Like I didn't like steal it. I was like, "Hey, can I use your phone for something really quick?" And then I just texted. I changed.
My mom's like, "No, get out of here."
Her name in my contacts isn't mom either. I had to change it to mom, and then I did that. So it was actually from my mom's phone. For that.
Jeez,
yes.
Thank God that got a lot of retweets. That's a lot of effort for one post.
I don't even think it did. I don't think it did. It was for me. I tweet for me. I thought it was funny. But no, Jeff Cumberland had 1 catch for 37 yards. Jeremy Curley
was Sanchez was playing, or was that
Mark Sanchez completed 12 passes all game? But
and that was, I'd imagine, was that David Garrard was gone, so that was probably Chad Henne.
It was Chad Henne at quarterback for the
That
Jaguars.
was before Bortles.
Yes, Jeremy Curley had like 30 yards. Chaz Schillen was second amongst wide receivers for the Jets with 2 catches for 27 yards. They were led by the 2-headed monster of Bilal Powell and Sean Green. And I always forget that those 2 crossed over and it had like a duo for a little bit because I think of them as 2 completely different eras of the Jets. But Bilal Powell was around forever. He was drafted in 2011. And the punter for the Jets was Robert Malone. Not that anyone cares, but
he probably
shout out our Robert Malone stand.
Whatever insurance agency he's working at now, he probably cares.
Hey, car agency, relax.
Whoa, Ed Gumbrecht with one last comment that we can't show on screen because it's too big. Let's build something. Rodgers has not been our problem. Defense blowing leads in the kicking game, throwing clock management last week. 0 reason this team does not have 8 or 9 wins based off this quarterback play.
Yes and no, but also the quarterback play we just got has not been the quarterback play that we've gotten all year. Like that's a really important thing to consider.
I think he's saying if they had this all year, they would have had 8 or 9 wins right now.
Yeah, I agree with that, but they haven't had this all year. Remember, Aaron Rodgers had the ball in his hands with a chance to win the game late in games like 5 times before this, and this is the first time that they've actually won one of those games.
One of them, Mike Williams, fell down, and kicking.
Sure, and then last game they did take the lead with Aaron Rodgers, or they took the lead and then the defense blew it. But Rodgers has had his opportunities, and he hasn't always done that this year. But yeah, if they got this version of Aaron Rodgers with a clean pocket and a healthy Rodgers for the entire game, yeah, they'd probably win 8-9 games maybe this year. And obviously, we're not going to sit here and defend the defense, because the defense, for as much as great as they were last year, and as much as I think people were really hard on them, and probably too hard on them last year, they've been bad and worse than the numbers suggest. The Jets going into this game were the number 4 ranked defense in the NFL, I believe, in terms of scoring.
Well, that's all Saleh early.
But no, even still, that's bullshit. They have not been the 4th ranked. Like, even if you say they were playing lights out under Saleh, which they weren't, they were playing better, but they weren't playing lights out. Even if you include
they were well above average under Saleh. Now
they were above average under Saleh. They were top 10, maybe top 5 defense under Saleh. So I don't know if I'd say that this year. Last year, absolutely. This year, I don't know, because the D-line was really struggling early on, and yeah, but they're not the number 4 defense in the NFL. They have been a lot worse than that, and obviously the kicking was not helping early with Greg Zuerlein. But sure, if you want to play the if game, we can always play the if game. If Greg Zuerlein made his kicks and the Jets didn't fire Robert Saleh and Jermaine Johnson doesn't get hurt and Aaron Rodgers doesn't get hurt, then maybe they win 9 games this year. It's a lot of ifs, and every team can play that if game.
And now we have a couple more. For some reason, guys, apologies, they're not showing up in our chat here, like we can bring it up on the screen, but we do have a couple more comments I want to get to.
Oh, that's weird.
Before we get Mother effing Chew is back with that's a great name. Run it back with Rodgers unless there's a clear upgrade, and I think you'll like this one. Mac Jones runs his mouth a lot. He needs his bell rung.
Yep, yeah, he does.
And first win in Florida since 2014.
Yes, it is, which is crazy. That was the Dolphins. They hadn't won in Miami in a decade, and they still haven't.
And then Leon is again back on the. Hopefully, next GM brings Rodgers and Adams back. Why wouldn't you want to have a good veteran quarterback and receiver in 2025? Even Rodgers in a diminished state is on pace for single season records.
Okay, we've talked about it again. I think. Look. Again, if you can guarantee
turn the bullhorn to them, Justin.
You can guarantee me that he is at this health level for the entire year, then sure, man. Like, part of me is like, all right, I like the Jets' offensive line right now. We didn't get to talk about this much. Honestly, like, Mike, my biggest takeaway from this game.
Ashanu looks amazing.
Ashanu looks great. The whole offensive line is good. I don't want to see another Jets fan say that the Jets' offensive line is bad. I don't want to see it. It's done. They don't.
And not only do they say it's bad, but they're like, it's one of the worst in the league.
It's
like, they're like,
stupid. It's the dumbest narrative. I have no idea how that continues to happen. It's because fans have been Jets fans have been so conditioned over the last 15 years since the great Rex years to say that their offensive line is bad, because for most of that time, it has been very bad. Like we've had the Wesley Johnsons of the world, the Wayne Hunters of the world, the Ben Ajalanas of the world starting. Yeah, it's been bad. There's been awful years. I mean, last year they played like 14 different offensive linemen. This year is not one of them. And I also want to get Elijah Vera Tucker stuff. What is with Jets fans and wanting to move on from MVT? I don't get it, Mike. I tweeted out something about the offensive line being good, and people were like, but they got to move on from MVT. Why? He's been good and has missed 2 games this year. What are you talking about?
I think I don't know why, because my first thought was like, well, he's been the worst player and people want to replace him. But I don't think he has been the worst. I think Moses has.
Moses has, and Moses is playing with half a shoulder and half a wrist.
And he's, what, 34?
Right. Like, the current starting offensive line.
I think because they traded up to get him, and he was on a trajectory before he got hurt where he was like, this guy could be a Pro Bowler every year, and he hasn't gotten back to that yet. So people are like, oh, he's
fine.
Cooked.
He's good. I think he's like PFF's like 15th best guard this year. That's good.
Well, I'm saying like WFAN callers are not going to look at that information. So
no, I don't give a shit about that. Fuck WFAN callers, man.
You know what I mean? Or like the guy with 8 followers on Twitter, they're not going to look at that information.
Sure, Joe Smith, 96, 59, 420 isn't going to care, but like I care, and I'm going to push back on the narrative because it's stupid. Right now, the Jets' current starting 5 offensive line, there are no weak spots. There are genuinely no weak spots. There's going to be bad games here and there, but the Vera Tucker stuff's crazy. Yes, I know he missed two seasons with injury. That sucks. If they were both the same injury, I'd be a lot more concerned. And if Vera Tucker gets another serious injury, yeah, we're having some serious conversations. I'm not saying the Jets should extend him this year. I'm saying, hey, be happy that he's played this year. He rolled his ankle and missed 2 games. Who cares? That happens. It's football. You know how many teams have offensive linemen get hurt every single year? Like, It's so rare for an entire starting offensive line to play an entire season together. It like never happens. It happened with the Colts a few years back, and it was like a big deal where it's like, holy shit, they had all 5 starters that played every game. That never happens. AVT missed 2 games because he rolled his ankle. Who cares? That doesn't mean he's injury prone. He tore his Achilles and he tore his triceps. Those are 2 completely unrelated injuries. That's bad luck. If it happens again, we'll have a discussion. But right now, hey man, be happy. Go into next year. He's under contract in 2025 already. He's on a 5th-year option. Obviously, you're not replacing him. Be happy with it. And if he has another good year next year, now we're talking extension.
And with that, I think we're going to go call it on the Jet Press podcast. The Jets are 4-10. They've won a game for only the second time in 3 months, basically.
They have.
So I'm happy about that. We could bemoan the draft pick later, but you know what? You know who wasn't a top 10 pick? Olufashinu.
Okay.
They traded down and got him. If they were at a top 10 pick, you know what they would have done? They would have probably taken Rome Odunze.
He was going to be the 10th overall pick, and then the Vikings just wanted to trade up to 10. But the Jets were going to take him at 10, so it's a...
Yeah, but they did. They went 11.
We didn't get to talk about
if the Jets had the number 7 pick, they probably would have taken Odunze.
Maybe they would have.
I think they definitely, because they said they wanted to pretty much when they...
If they had the first overall pick in 2021, or 2020, they would have, or 2021, they would have drafted Trevor Lawrence instead of Zach Wilson, which would be better.
That would have been a good move. This is definitely...
Well, that's what I'm saying, is that like, hey, you are more likely to get better players the higher you're picking. But we don't need to go into that again.
Thank you for tuning in. You know where to find us on all the podcast platforms. You know how to support the show. Liking, subscribing, paying for the membership. You can do all those things from the comfort of your living room. So, Justin, any final thoughts?
I'm happy for Jets fans who are rooting for them to win. I'm happy for the Jets players who have been trying desperately to win all year, and especially guys, like the Garrett Wilsons of the world, like the Quincy Williams, the Jamian Sherwoods, whoever. I'm happy for those guys. And for the Jets fans like me that are rooting for the tank, it's okay. It's not the end of the world. Be happy for your fellow fans. Be happy for your players, the players that are on your favorite team. Be happy for them. Don't lose sleep over this, because ultimately the Jets don't care about you, so why should you care about them? And on that note, thank you all for joining us on the show today. You can follow Mike on Twitter at @ByMike Luciano. Follow me on Twitter at Justin T. Freed. Follow Jet Press at the Jet Press. Download the Jet Press podcast wherever you get podcasts. Check us out on YouTube. Subscribe, hit the notification bell. Also, you can subscribe today and become a member. It is just 99 cents. You get priority comments in the chat, and it's a great way to help support the show. You guys know what to do with the rest of that stuff. We stream live every Wednesday at 3 p.m. Eastern Time and live immediately following every single Jets game. Thank you all for listening to Jet Press Podcast. I've been Justin Freed. That has been Mike Luciano. See you guys next time.
A winner for the first time in God knows how long.